Friends, joining us for today's discourse would be our first role model, Dr. Samuel Onwona. He's a Ghanaian national and an agric economist by profession. He obtained his doctorate degree in 1986 when most of us were yet a clot of blood in our mother's womb. From the University of Guelph in Ontario, Canada, he joined the World Bank as a young professional program in 1986 and worked mainly in the African region of the bank. His high point at the bank was when he redesigned the World Bank AFAD cassava project, which was worth $162 million in Nigeria, which this project shifted the focus from consumption demand to industrial demand by pharmaceutical, textile, and confectionery companies. The project was one of the most successful World Bank projects in Africa and led to a quantum leap in Nigeria's cassava production from 19 million to 32 million tons in 5 years. It's a good point to put your hands together. Dr. Onwona later joined the African Development Bank, ADB, in 1997 on a 4-year external service with re-entry guarantee to the World Bank, but decided after the external service to join the ADB permanently in 2001. His key tasks at the ADB included formulation of the bank's agricultural and rural development policy, the rural finance policy, and the bank's vision paper. He was advisor to 2 operations vice presidents prior to his appointment as resident representative of the ADB in Sierra Leone, with oversight responsibilities for the bank's portfolio in Liberia. Following the 3-year field assignment in Sierra Leone, Dr. Onwona took an early retirement from the ADB in December 2011 and returned home to the land of his birth, from where he works as an independent consultant, as a minister with GAFAs and other interdenominational platforms. He also currently serves on the board, the advisory board of the College of Basic and Applied Sciences of the University of Ghana. He is an author of 9 published books. Wow, that's impressive. We should put our hands together. And married to 1 wife, and in this day and age, need I add, who is a woman. He's blessed with 4 children, and we have the honor of having one of his children here with us, Eunice. Eunice is on attachment, or should I say internship, with VOA, and she's in the country to continue with that project. So Eunice actually should have been sitting in my seat to do this professionally, but she gladly obliges that I interview her dad. Friends, help me make welcome Dr. Sam Onwona. Well, giving honor to whom honor is due. Let's do it one more time. Let's put our hands together. You may please be seated. Dr. Onwona, you're welcome to Role Model Africa and to our first mentoring session.
Thank you very much. I trust in the Lord that the next generation will see a different picture of Africa, a positive image. And I believe we have what it takes to do that. God bless you.
All right. Well, friends, to make this discussion engaging, because you're a live audience, it's okay to applaud when you feel inspired. Or when I give a cue, like now. Well, we're going to take advantage of technology, and Role Model Africa, it's already trending on the hashtag Role Model Africa. So if you pick any bite, you have any comments that you want to share with the rest of the world that is not here with us, kindly do so on all the major networks. Hashtag Role Model Africa, and you'll be joining in the conversation. We would also create a platform where we'll field some questions from you. So as we go on, if you have a question that you want to ask, you just put up your hand. Our ushers and protocol team would take note. They'll give you a slip of, they'll pass a sheet of paper to you. So you put the question down, then it will be brought to me. I'll proofread and screen to take out all the NDC, MPP. Don't mind me. But we would would sanitize it for our guest this evening. Dr. Onwona, very, very intriguing profile for someone who is local. How did your journey begin? Tell us who Dr. Onwona is. Where did you come from? Where did you start this amazing journey?
Well, I would say first and foremost, I'm a Christian, a born-again, spirit-filled Christian, with a very strong Presbyterian upbringing. I started with the Presbyterian primary school at Kibi. I think we were then hosted up to the north. I was taken to Every Boys Boarding School, Presby. Used to be called Amanfo. And then from there, I went to Presec. So you can see the Presbyterian thing. Went to Presec at Legon.
There are no Presecans in the house.
And then from Presec, I went to Legon to do ag economics in 1976 to 79. So basically, I would say I'm a Christian, first and foremost, and secondly, my professional area is economics.
Thank you. And what, looking over the span of your life, both public and private, what would you say are the central pillars, the things that have held your life together, the convictions that have held you, the principles that you have held on to, that have brought you this far?
It's a very, very important question, so I want you to be very attentive. As a Christian, I understand very clearly from Psalm 139 that God knew us before we were born. It's a very powerful psalm, but many Christians don't talk about it. Now, if your arrival to this planet, you had no role in it, you were not party to when you will be born, where you will be born, whether male or female. You know, I always crack the joke that if God were to give us the opportunity to decide before arrival, show us the planet, probably this place will be empty. Africa. So your race, your gender, place of birth, parents to whom you are born, you have no control over. Neither do you have control over your departure. So what makes us think that we can live this life in between without God? So that's my first and foremost point as a Christian, to rely on God, to trust in God. And then the third pillar is integrity. And I would like to talk quite a bit about it because you've mentioned the issue of role models. I'll be making a distinction between what type of roles are we talking about and what type of models are people modeling their life after. So when we start talking about role models, we know we are saying the same thing. When I was growing up, the word gay used to be when you are happy. Today, gay has a different meaning. And so also the word role model, I'll come to that. But basically, the three pillars are: one, faith in Christ; two, integrity; and three, the fear of God.
Wow. Faith, integrity, and the fear of God. I think that we can actually put all of these together into one, because you can't be a person of faith without integrity and without your God. Thanks for sharing this with us. So, especially when you hit on the point of integrity, I could see that you stressed it deeply. What is in it for business? Because there are many people of us here. I'm sure that there are quite a number of young people here who are starting up businesses, who working in a business climate like we have here in Ghana are struggling with whether or not to get a goat or to get some yams and facilitate things, because like they say, money answereth all things. How has integrity helped you in your journey so far? Can we mix faith, integrity, and business and still succeed? Isn't it the case that you always need to be back somewhere so that you can smoothen the path?
All right. Listen, fellow Ghanaians, this is the most critical part of life. Integrity is God, and God is integrity. Lack of integrity is the devil. Now, this integrity business is what you are and what you do when no one is watching. When the fear of God is the foundation of your life, you have integrity. It is not a function of poverty. If integrity were an issue of poverty, we wouldn't have Enron happening. These were rich business tycoons cheating. One of the most successful auto manufacturers in the world is Volkswagen. Just this week, we heard about how they have been cheating with the emissions test. We have very powerful and rich bankers who are playing around with the LIBOR rates. So integrity is not an issue of poverty or the rich. It cuts across cultures, races, and all spheres of human life. It is the key to success. And it starts from home. With the Christian upbringing and the strict Presbyterian training, I found myself at Presec, Legon, as assistant deacon. I have to share these experiences with you to appreciate how it works. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to demonstrate and live it out. You've had situations of many people who looked good, talked all the right things, until they were found in politics, and people were shocked about how their lives turned around. Your life of integrity is not confirmed until you have faced the test and passed. So as a student, my pocket money was 2 cedis. 2 cedis. And every Sunday, as assistant deacon, I'll collect the offering. Over 100 cedis in coins, and bring them to the chaplain. All I needed was just 1 coin, 50 pesos, and my weekly supply of buffaloat, meat pie, not the air pie you eat these days. Those days we had meat pie, not air and onion pies. And proper ice cream from milk, not imported powdered milk. The temptation was there, but the fear of God kept me from touching that which is not mine. Now, Anas has brought us something. If those judges and those lawyers knew this was coming into the public, they would have behaved differently. So integrity is what you do when nobody is watching. And in my work experience, I think I shared that experience. I don't know if you want me to talk about it now.
Yes, you can. Once we're talking about integrity,
All right.
so give us a real life
example. Here I was at the World Bank. Nigeria was moving from, I think, 19 to 22 states. And I covered 12 of the 19 states based in Washington. I had come to supervise a project, and the governor had taken about 20 of about 30 vehicles belonging to the project. This governor was a military governor, and so this was Babangida's days. This was not democratic process, so they were very powerful. And I was sent from Washington to go and close that project if the vehicles will not be returned. This is an agricultural project, and we expect the agricultural staff of the ministry to visit the farmers to impart the knowledge and the technology. So once you take away the cars, you've basically immobilized them. And the governor was aware I was coming. He had given strict instructions to the staff to tell me that the cars had been returned. So I had a meeting with the project team, and the manager assured me all the cars had been returned. So I said, okay, let me go and do a field visit to see how the farmers are doing. As I stepped out of the office of the project manager, actually the conference room, a young lady, a member of the team, rushed out and left a piece of paper folded in my hands and rushed back in. Nobody saw her. When I opened it, it read, "Do not believe a word of what they've told you. None of the cars has been returned." They are people of integrity, even in the midst of all that corruption. So I went back to the project management team and I said, listen, one of your own staff has informed me that none of the cars has been returned. Tell me the truth. And he bowed his head and said, sir, that is the case. But the governor has warned us. I said, leave that to me. So I went straight to the governor's office, explained to him, I said, Your Excellency, and the governor, I mean, in a federation, the state is an autonomous entity. So I explained to him, I said, Your Excellency, it has come to my knowledge that the cars have not been returned, and I'm going to close down the project. But there's a way out. This is an agricultural project. You have a new state that has been created. You need vehicles for your state cabinet. What I would advise you to do is take a couple of vehicles from the agricultural project, and the World Bank had projects in practically every sector. So go to education and pick up 2 cars from a World Bank finance project in the education sector, and likewise for the health and the other sectors. You can equip your team that way, but to stifle one sector is not acceptable. And he agreed. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, he wrote letters to all the departments that had taken the cars, and I went back with the registration numbers of the cars to go and take delivery of them at the project site. They had never seen anything like this before. The governor was not pleased. He organized what we call a state dinner for me. It was usual. Brought in what they call command performance. African cultural troops were there. And I was at a center table with him. And they took the video of the whole program. And normally, at the end of the program, when we were going away at the farewell, they give you a copy of the video. And they planned this so nicely and packaged money in the shape of the video cassette, the VHS. Huh? You know VHS? Today you have CDs, but I'm talking about VHS. Shaped them nicely in that form, and publicly with the press watching, gave it to me as a gift. So for me, it was what? A VHS copy of the previous night's state dinner. I drove on my way to the airport, and this is why God is important in all these matters. the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me. He said, open that parcel and check. And I opened 25,000 brand new Naira notes. That's when Naira was Naira. So I asked the federal government counterpart who came with me on that mission, open your envelope and let's see. He opened his 5,000 brand new Naira notes. Now it was late to go back to that state to come back and catch the flight. So I went to the next state, which was in the same area. I presented the case to the governor and warned him. I said, you are my friend. I would have done a press conference and displayed this money for the whole world. I would have called BBC, CNN, and all of them to witness this event. You know you have a difficult name already, and you don't want Nigeria governor attempts to bribe World Bank in the press. So take this money and warn your colleague, I don't play that game. This is one example of integrity. The temptations are out there. Another simple area, and that one was not theft or anything wrong. On my first World Bank mission, we went to Bangladesh on economic mission. We stayed in a 7-star hotel at the Shonagan in Dhaka. We were there for about 3 weeks. And of course, fresh from graduate school, I had joined the Young Professional Program. I was not that expensive. You know, I just took my fried rice and my Coke and whatever. We returned to Washington, D.C. after 3 weeks, presented our returns. In those days, the World Bank took care of food and hotel, and we had to come back and report and return the money. The admin secretary called me and said, Sam, were you starving? I said, why are you asking? I ate well. He said, no. Everybody else has a bill of $45 to $50 per day. Yours is 25. How come? What were you doing? What were you eating? I said, I ate well. But of course, when you are drinking the cognac and take what do you call those black seeds of the fish, caviar, and alcoholic beverages, it adds up over 3 weeks. Short of it is that it became apparent that we were not abusing the privilege. And it's not that my colleagues were abusing the privilege. The standard for the what you call the UN daily subsistence allowance was around $65 to $100, depending upon which country we are visiting. So they were well within the limit. But poor guy, I was just eating my little rice and sandwiches and stuff. After a while, the World Bank realized the challenge and decided to break the per diem aspect of food from the hotel. And it's amazing, once that was done, there's very people who were doing $45 to $50 a day were on my level as well. Incentives. But it's a typical example of this issue of integrity. It starts from the home. Have you noticed something with our culture in Ghana, let me say? The Kwekwanansi stories we read, the culture and the philosophical underpinning is your ability to outwit. So Kwekwanansi has 2 of his sons, and he's holding 2 pieces of two oranges. If he takes one and asks the 2 sons to share, they will cry foul. So he says, you are little children, just take the oranges and just make sure you each give me half. And they are happy to take the 2 oranges and give him half each. Now, when you hear a story like this, you are being taught how to outwit people. And if you look at all the Kwaku Anansi stories, they are like that. So this issue of integrity is a serious matter. It has to do with the fear of God and getting the right principles of righteousness as the underpinning force. Without it, we have a problem. It is in all sectors of economic endeavor. You've heard about the judiciary recently. The police are there. The health sector, they steal drugs and then they set the health depot at the port on fire to destroy the records. I went and bought something the other day from a shop, and the guy asked me, "Do you need a receipt?" I said, "Yes." And then he said, "How much should I write?" I said, "Why are you asking? I paid 20, write 20. In other words, if I had asked him to write 50, he would have written 50, and if I had been sent with 50, I would have put 30 in my pocket. Exactly. So we have lowered the standards of integrity. We are doing things that are not pleasing. The Bible says, and you started with prayer, so I believe this is a Christian forum. When I did the commencement speech for University of Ghana in July 24th, I'm happy no one told me they don't want us to pray. Because when I was finishing the speech, I prayed for the students, and I was surprised to see the response. At the end of the program, a Muslim came to see me and thanked me for the prayers. God cannot be left out of this matter. That's the bottom line. It is the fear of God. So when you go into the educational sector, people are stealing. Some teachers are giving the papers, selling the papers, correct? And they are canceling results. You go to the road sector, a project that is supposed to cost $50 ends up being put down at 70, and 20 is going behind the scenes. So look at Accra, for instance. The best road we have is the N1. From my experience at the World Bank, capitals have the same road specifications for all streets. So what you see on N1 is what all the side roads in in Accra are supposed to be like. But have you noticed the Tatale roads you drive on? No, and we have supervising engineers. You have the chief engineer. You have the minister of works. You have the minister of finance, all clearing this for payment. In Sierra Leone, I had one project that was closing in 2 months' time. And they brought to my desk 47 contracts to just sign. You know, just a stroke of a pen of my signature and money is being paid. And I had an experience from Nigeria that taught me a lesson, that when my project is coming to an end, I have to be very careful what I sign onto. So 47 contracts with 3 months to go, red flag. So without permission from the headquarters, I called 3 engineers, men of integrity again, because they could have come back and colluded with the team. And I selected 2 of my staff and gave them strict warning. Go with these engineers and do a ground truthing exercise and bring me pictures and a report to confirm that these projects have been done and are due for payment. 47 contracts. They came back, only 11. 11 of the 47 had met the requirements. And yet, the chief engineer, the supervising engineer, the minister of works, and minister of finance does not go to the field, so he relies on this team. And they had brought the report to him to sign. 5:30 a.m., the minister of finance calls me, "Sam, What's all this trouble? The contractors are worrying me. They are calling me left and right. You know, next year is election year, and this is going to create problems for us. I said, Minister, please call a meeting with the contractors. I have done a report. Without permission from the headquarters, 3 consultants went out. I paid them $15,000 to bring the report. We sat in the conference room. The minister asked me to make my presentation. When I finished, the chief engineer was asked to respond. Honorable Minister, what Doc is saying is true, but you know we are a poor country, and he said, stop it. I'm a governor of the bank. Every Minister of Finance, by the way, is a governor of the African Development Bank and the African World Bank. I'm a governor of the bank. We set these rules. So we can't make any compromise for us. Yes, we are a poor nation, but that is not the reason why you should lie to sign for me. So from that day, he set up a monitoring and evaluation unit in the Ministry of Finance, never to sign anything without the approval. So there are all kinds of things going on within the system, and it is lack of integrity, lack of the fear of God.
Wow. Friends, you could see the passion almost become flesh as he spoke. We're a nation of faith only in creed, but not in deed. I think the challenge that Dr. Onwona leaves us with is that let's not dissociate the faith that we profess in the God we serve from the way we live and do business. That if Africa would have a new story, it would take a new breed of people who decide that we would intentionally rewrite the script, that no longer would corruption be a norm, no longer would bribery be acceptable, that we would use whatever we need to rebuild our streets. Someone told me that when you drive on our streets and you see potholes, the crater there that you see is what the person who took the bribe chopped. So the potholes are literally the corruption, evidence of corruption that went into the road construction. But if a road like the N1 can be built and supervised by Ghanaians, only that because the money was coming from different quarters, it was applied well, and we are not doing patches and repairs on those roads, think how much losses we're incurring on other roads that we every year we lay coal and tar over just because we cheated the system. So the challenge would be for us to stand for what we believe. But if I'll chip this in.
Yeah, I wanted to add one little point also about why we are where we are. We have emphasized, or let's say overemphasized, smartness at the expense of integrity. So when we were going to school, yes,
that's a good note to hashtag.
He's very brilliant. He's smart. Now, I think it's Warren Buffett who said, when you're looking for someone to employ, look for 3 qualities: energy, smartness, and integrity. He says if he lacks integrity, drop him like hot cake. He will kill your business. Smartness without integrity is a very dangerous combo. So you can have very smart thieves. Very, very smart thieves. And that's what you have killing the society. When people are smart, I told this story in the graduation ceremony of one of our students at Presec. Very smart guy. Very, very smart. Clocking the A's. But lack of integrity. We were supposed to take what we call permission before we come out. I think only on the weekends. This guy came to Legon without permission. On his way back, The infrastructure has changed quite a bit, but there used to be a trotro station across the street. And when he was coming down to pick up the trotro, he met the music master. The music master knew he caught this guy. Within a split second, this guy hooked up a plan. He went and bought a loaf of bread, marched confidently to the music master, who was also accosting him. Said, "Excuse me, are you one of the teachers at Presec?" Of course, he knows he's got him. And reluctantly said, "Yes." So, I was going to visit my twin brother at Presec. Would you mind taking this loaf of bread to give to him? Please tell him we are very busy with exams, and I'll see him next week. The music master knows he's got this guy, but the guy is speaking with confidence. There's nothing in the face that shows that he's terrified. So reluctantly, he picks up this loaf of bread, and the music master goes into his car. He picks a taxi. He says, "Beat that car." He goes all the way back and goes into his dormitory to sleep. About an hour later, the music master comes with this loaf of bread. Comes looking for him. He picks up this loaf of bread and he says, "I met your twin brother at Legon, and he asked me to bring you this loaf of bread." He said, "He didn't add any money." He said, "No." He said, "Oh man." Smart. Can you see what I'm talking about? Smart. And the joke is all over the place. We know the story, but our music master doesn't know. It doesn't take long before our friend gets into trouble. And the teachers have gathered together and are talking. And he says, the music master says, "No wonder his twin brother is at Legon and he's still here doing his A-level." And one of the teachers said, "No, I know the father. He has only one child." He said, no, I met the twin brother." Of course, when they called him to question him, he said, "You met me?" Smart, but dangerous. There's something called judgment debt. Have you heard about it? There are genuine cases of judgment debt. There's no question about that. But when I was growing up, there was a program called OD, Super OD. There's something he called accident according to plan. So when you cook up a situation of a judgment debt, where the actors are very much aware of what is going on, and government refuses to come and defend herself at the court of law, and they are judged wrong and they pay the money and they go back and share. That's a very smart way of stealing. And that's how the Enrons are making it. Look at Volkswagen. They are talking about billions of dollars that they have to pay now. You have rich bankers who are sitting down and colluding to adjust the LIBOR, the London Interbank Offered Rates. This is international. Serious crime using this. So you've got to be very careful when you talk about role model. I want to address that as we go along.
Well, Dr. Onwona, just for those who would say, well, it's easy to talk about integrity when you work in the protection of the ivory tower, such as the World Bank, where you do the supervision, where you set the rules, you have the funds, where you're comfortably paid. And so it's easy to live for integrity. So for the curious minds who would want to find out if you've practiced or worked outside the World Bank so we're talking before your entry into the World Bank. Did you do business in any organization before entry into the World Bank?
It's a very important point you are raising. First of all, that's why I said this issue of integrity knows no bounds. So it's not a question of whether you are well paid or not. Those Enron guys were very well paid. The Volkswagen guys are very well paid. The people who played with LIBOR are very well paid. And those who use insider information at Wall Street are very well paid. Okay, so it's not any protection of any sort. The foundation must start at the homestead. I told you about my case at Presec. There was no coverage. I mean, nobody was with me. And just 2 coins was all I needed. Okay. When we were at Legon, we were posted to Nungua Station, one of the research stations, to go and learn about the various aspects of agriculture. And during that training, we were posted to the poultry section, the dairy section, the sheep and goat, the piggery, just to learn about how to raise these different aspects of agriculture production. The most popular area was the dairy place where people got some ice cream and stuff, and then the poultry. I noticed that every evening, some of our colleagues were boiling eggs. Now, we were given pocket money. Now, in those days, we didn't pay school fees. When I was at Legon, we were given weekly pocket money, and we didn't pay school fees either. And we went to this Nungua station, and they were boiling eggs by the pots, a whole pot full of eggs, Then one afternoon, we were called by the station manager that since we arrived, the daily collection of eggs had dwindled from 755 eggs a day to 500. So 200 eggs were, and this is not the, what we call the battery system where they are in cages. This is what we call the litter system, where you go into a big room and they've laid the eggs and you just collect. So they were collecting the eggs, and then some were showing up in their pockets in the rooms. We were called and challenged to expose what was going on. Do you know what happened? The whole group, the whole class decided we will not own up anybody. They said, we are not going to own up anybody. They have to sack all of us. I stood up, I said, I'm sorry. I know who was boiling this. I will not be part of the team. Oh, get away, you. Too no, Krife. It is costly if you are going to live a life of integrity. You become very unpopular. But if you know why you are doing what you are doing, nothing will deter you. I want to assure you that when you stand for integrity, God is fully behind you. Let me drop this one quickly. When God called Moses, he said, Moses, I am the judge, and I'm giving this function to you. Please make sure that you don't show any respect of persons. Judge fairly. No difference between rich and poor, young and old, nothing. Abraham, in negotiating with Jesus about Sodom and Gomorrah, said, shall the judge of all the earth not do right? The seat of the judge is God's seat. If he gives you that function and you play around with it, he will teach you a lesson. So back to the story at the university. I spoke out, I said, I'm sorry. I know you guys, I'm going to point you out. One of them got up to say, you beat me up. I said, you are making my case easier. You beat me, and I go and show my swollen face to the director. What happened to you? The guy stole eggs. So I said, listen, let us agree that you will own up. I will lead the team and apologize. Okay, if you like that, then I will support you. So after about 30 to 40 minutes of discussion and back and forth, they agreed. I went to the late Befi Abua and apologized. And he forgave us. It takes confidence in God to stand for integrity. It is not a function of whether you are protected by an ivory tower situation. The protection is indeed from God. That's what I want you to know.
Thank you very much. A round of applause here. So let's come to your journey again. For most of our mentees here, I'm sure that there'll be some who would aspire to work with the World Bank or any international organization. How did you get into the World Bank? How did you enter that ivory tower?
Thank you for that question. I was a student at Legon and needed to do some research. Found myself at the Institute of Social, Statistical and Economic Research, ISA. I don't know what they call it today, but it's still ISA. And I went there and found some books, World Bank, World Bank, World Bank. I said, hey, which bank is this? So that was my first exposure to the World Bank. And I said, this is a place I'd like to work. When I saw the type of things they were doing, serious development. Finished Legon, did my national service on campus, and then went to Canada for my master's and PhD. When I finished my master's program, I applied to the World Bank. They immediately replied and said, we are sorry, you don't qualify. Please come back again when you have a PhD. There are 5,000 applications every year, minimum. They select 500 applications to apply. In other words, the 4,005, they just throw them off. Then out of the 500, they select 120 for interviews in Washington, D.C. You go through 3 sets of interviews. Then out of the 120, they select 50. And they present the 50 to a board to choose 25. So if God is not on your side, and if you don't have connections, have you heard this statement before? It is a valid statement. But we normally forget that God is part of the equation. If you are connected to God, you have the greatest advantage. My classmate, actually a schoolmate who was at Presec, working at the World Bank, told me, he said, Sam, don't waste your time about this young professional program. The people who come in are from Harvard, Yale, MIT. If God is on your side, there is nothing, there is no door he cannot open for you. So I prayed about it and I applied when I was about to finish my PhD. Was invited for the interview. It's very interesting. At the interview, as I prepared to go for the interview, I had this badge, Our God Reigns. And the devil spoke to me. He said, this is not a Christian organization. You are going for interview with highly skilled professionals. You are going to anoint them. At this level, people don't talk God, 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 God. Listen to me, gentlemen and ladies. Don't let them fool you. The people who want to ridicule you about your God, if God were to tell you what they are doing secretly, you'll be shocked. When 911 came, the World Bank and all the UN organizations, African Development Bank, decided to put tough security to check staff coming in and going out, just to make sure no one will play like a staff and come and bomb the place. A staff member in exquisite suit, carrying a briefcase, opened his bag, and there was a live snake in it. When we retrofitted the African Development Bank in Abidjan, because it was built in 1963, there was no internet, and they had to now put all the wires. When they removed the ceiling to put the wires, come and see pots that people have brought from fetish priests and shrines. I'm not joking. The corporate world is a very dangerous place. And I want to encourage you to hold on to your God. Don't let anybody ridicule you about your God. Because that's how you are going to make it. Now, as I put on this thing, Our God Reigns, and the devil was whispering to me, I prayed. I said, God, the devil is right. This is not a griffé organization. But if because I am showcasing you, I don't make this job, so be it. When you stick your neck out for God, he will defend you. So I put it on and went for the interview. At the interview, the guy started, University of Guelph. Guelph is written Guelph, and the PH is pronounced as an F, Guelph. The guy said, where is the University of Guelph? The devil said, if you had been to Harvard, would they be asking you about it? You have already failed this interview. I said, no problem. On 6 March 1986, I got a call from Washington, D.C. that I had qualified for the Young Professional Program. And so I joined the World Bank. Friends, God is the key. I have no qualms about it. I have no apologies about it. And I want to tell you, those who dabble into the occult in the corporate world also have no qualms about it. Why should we hide our Christianity? Let's be bold and stand up for Christ.
Well, friends, the lesson there is wear your faith as a badge. You might not have a crest with it, but just live it every day. Dr. Onwona, as we wind down, did you have any mentors as you were coming up? Who were your mentors or role models?
The first and foremost role models were my parents. I've told you this thing must start from the homestead. And then I had a few good teachers, very good teachers. At Abri Boys, one J.J. Adai, who was a headmaster, solid disciplinarian, God-fearing man. Mr. Kante was my teacher. He became a librarian at Legon. And then in the household of faith, somebody mentioned Oyedipo. He's a very good friend of mine. Pastor Diboye is another one man of God. We have quite a few of them also in the country. When I was growing up, we had Isaac Abebio, a powerful evangelist. What's his name? He had the GES, we call the Ghana Evangelism Society, Reverend Agbozo. It was a prayer meeting I never missed. In fact, it was every Friday all night. And my dad used to tease me that when I travel abroad, I'll fly down every Friday for all nights. Pastor Diboye is another wonderful mentor. These people I'm mentioning are all professionals in their own right. Pastor Diboye is actually a PhD in mathematics. He was due to be the youngest VC for University of Lagos when God called him. Bishop Oyedipo, full-fledged accountant who went into ministry, has put up a multi-billion-dollar ministry today. With the discipline, he told me, I met him in 1988 under a shed. Could you believe it? A shed, aluminium shed. I was on a World Bank mission in Kaduna and went to church service. And I landed up in his place, took me home for dinner, and he shared his vision with me. When I was in Sierra Leone and he came over, I took the UN helicopter to go and welcome him at Lungi Airport. He said, Sam, this is the secret. I told you in '88 when I went into full-time ministry and people asked me, how are you going to keep your family? He went and asked the Lord, Lord, I'm well paid. I'm doing my job. You are asking me to leave this thing and go and serve you. How am I going to take care of my family? He said God spoke to him. He said, when you were working as an accountant, did you ever bother about how you will be paid at the end of the month? He said, no. He said, go and serve me likewise and see whether I won't take care of you. So from the dining table in the morning at 7, he served, they cleared the table. He works from 8 to 1. They cleared the table for lunch and so forth. And when I met him, his church had become the biggest congregation in the world, over 50,000 at Canaan land. God is faithful. And if you stand with him, it doesn't matter where you go, in the corporate world, in the banking sector, in the world of ministry, wherever the Lord plants you, He will take you there to shine forth and manifest His glory. That's my message to you. Stick with God. You will never be disappointed. But be principled, be disciplined. God hates indiscipline. Be disciplined. And this last book I have, the most recent, is titled, Are You a Wise Fool? Are You a Wise Fool? This book will surprise you. The Omanhene of Ochihine, yes, what's his name? Osajifo Amwetia wrote the foreword. It's a very interesting book, and I'm dealing with the subject of folly. I was shocked when I listened to the book of Proverbs and found out that folly is everywhere among professionals. There are professionals who are fools in one way or the other. It's amazing, because the concept of a fool connotes one who is not right upstairs. It's not true. When you read the Bible, Solomon himself, in fact, he's the first subject I picked up in that book. Solomon, who is telling us in Proverbs 24 and 31 about how to handle ourselves, how to handle women. In fact, he said, "Oh, Lemuel, don't give your strength to wine and to women." That's exactly what Solomon fell into. 700 wives, 300 concubines. How many of you are here? Can you imagine? This whole room is filled with women, and they are all Solomon's wives. 700 wives, 300 concubines. How many years do you have in a year? Days do you have in a year? I want to open up something to you to see. So if you are in that 700 league, you see him every 3 years. Serious folly. Because of him, the kingdom of Israel got divided into two after his rule. He exhibited folly. The wisest man. That's what that book is all about.
Okay. Speaking about folly and wisdom, would you say it's a wise decision for young people here to pursue after mentoring? Is it a waste of time? Would you say it has advantages? And how would mentoring impact on their journey?
Okay. Now, earlier on, the MC went around to give us a little bit of what participants here see as a role model. That word is a compound word, role and model. Now, in a crowd like this, there are certain answers you pick up as role models. Now, the sexual worker or sex worker who is with a pimp, who has gone in intentionally, not those who are being abused, as a role model who is a pimp. Someone who is in the drug business, working with a drug baron, has a drug baron who is a role model, correct? So the concept of a role model has changed because of the dynamism of society. There are people who enter into politics, very poor, and within 1 to 2 terms are filthy rich, owning flashy cars and mansions. They've become role models, whether they got the money right or not. So I want to challenge you about this concept of mentorship and role model to be very careful. First of all, check what it is you are looking for. Is your motive to become rich? What is the motive? I was in a conference for the two Bills, Bill Gates and Bill Clinton in South Africa. It was the president of the ADB who was invited, and I was asked to represent the bank. A 7-year-old boy at the dinner asked Bill Gates a question. He said, 25 years from now, how will technology look like? And Bill Gates' answer was very simple. He said, 25 years ago when I dreamt about the desktop, in those days we had what we call mainframe computers Oh, they were very impressive. A whole room like this, you enter with huge machines, very intimidating, with flashy lights. That's what Bill Gates saw and said, how about bringing this technology to every home? His mind was one of helping humanity. That was the motive. And out of that, Microsoft was born. His answer to that young boy was, 25 years from now, I'd like to believe that some of the routine things we do at home, we can set our homes up in such a way that by the time we wake up, our coffee is ready. And so the man is thinking about how to help humanity. Today, Bill Gates is giving $250 million for malaria research every year. And I heard something very interesting, that the mother started to pay tithes on behalf of Bill Gates when he was a boy. And God has rewarded that gesture. God has rewarded that gesture by making that son of that woman the richest man in the world. But the motive behind it is to help humanity. So if you see a politician who entered politics 4 years ago and is running flashy cars and has built a mansion and you want to model your life after him, you've got to find out how they make that money. So check the integrity of the person before you start looking up to them. But definitely mentorship is a necessary part of the growth and development process.
All right. Doc, I said I was winding down, but there's an important question that I need to ask because it's relevant to the subject we are considering of integrity. The World Bank, does it have integrity? They say in circles that if the World Bank tells your country, your economy is doing well, you have to think otherwise. That's a very popular phrase that goes around in circles. And so in governments, anytime World Bank comes in, it almost seems like it spells doom that you are heading for a collapse. Does the World Bank have integrity?
My simple answer is this. If I come to your house and your house is in order, can I advise you? But if I enter your living room and the goat is passing by, and what's supposed to be in the kitchen is in the living room, and the chickens are flying all over the place, I can begin to give you some advice. The World Bank is an institution that was set up to rebuild Europe. It was not set up for development originally in 1945. The Bretton Woods Conference was set up to help Europe to be rebuilt. When they finished that job, they thought that, why don't we put these resources together to help with reconstruction and development? So the real name of the World Bank is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. Now, if we come to your country, and I've sat in that shoe, and I'm telling you, and we come to meet your minister to talk about development, and you can do all the talk, and you don't have the simple discipline as we have in our country today to implement basic decisions that we have agreed on, is it the fault of the World Bank? The World Bank is not here to play games. It's a money-making business. We have a private sector arm that lends billions to nations and makes money. As how can they pay those salaries? So it is not the World Bank we need to blame. I'm hoping that with the next generation, we will not need to borrow from the World Bank. So the issue is not about the integrity of the bank, and the integrity of any institution is the sum total of the integrity of the people. So if more of the people are not exhibiting integrity, you pick it up. Of course, there are rules of the game in terms of how we work. Policies are laid out clear. I mentioned the question of infrastructure, roads, infrastructure. The rules are there. The Americans supervise the N1 with their money, and you can see the standard. When it comes to taxpayers' money of Ghanaians in the hands of the ministry, how do we supervise that? When we knowingly go and sign off on road projects that have not met the minimum standards. With World Bank projects, we bring consultants who dig up to measure the height of the bitumen. Yes. And they travel the road to measure at intervals, haphazard, any place. Because if it is meeting the conditions, it doesn't matter where you check. I'm yet to see a road that has lasted for more than 2 years. They did one recently in East Legon, where I am, opposite American House. Go there and see the potholes that have developed. Just under 18 months. Same specifications. But who signed off? Who signed off on those things to be paid? It is us who have lowered our own standards. And when you lower your standards, don't blame the World Bank. The World Bank may have certain policies that are not right, but even then, it is up to our ministers to challenge them and to define their own program. Babangida rejected the structural adjustment program in 1984 or 85, called back the World Bank team after he had been educated about the issues of the price movements and whatnot, and came back with a more strict adjustment program for Nigeria. So it is not the World Bank. I'm not here to defend the World Bank. They have made serious mistakes from time to time. And they are ordinary human beings like you and I, a young professional from Harvard who has never been to Africa on a mission to Africa with an experienced team will come and use his economics on you if you don't know what your economy is all about. You cannot sustain the value of the city if you are not promoting local manufacturing, and you are attacking, and this is not, I'm not attacking any party. They do it either way. It is not our party, therefore they will never get the contract. It's not our party, so we will try and bring them down. Why don't you promote the industry and tax them to generate income to do development? When you kill that industry because they are not in that party, what do? They take their money out and bring it abroad. 40% of Africa's capital, private capital of Africa, is in banks abroad. Think about it. For every $10 million, $4 million of Ghana's money is sitting out there. And it's because there's lack of confidence in our own system. We have what it takes, but we have to straighten up our economy and put our house in order. And we are believing this generation, this young generation, to do that job. Because this one has failed.
Well, we're hearing it said over and over again. We need to start rewriting the story that Africa would want to have in the next 50 years. We're going to field questions from you, our special guest that we have. We would give the opportunity for people to ask their own questions. What we want you to do is to be very direct and, should I say, professional about it. So I'm going to count on your integrity. No long essays. Get to the chase of the matter. Ask the question. We're going to give each column an opportunity to ask one question. So if you get the opportunity from your side, please make sure that you represent your group well. So Sam would be coordinating with me. If you put up your hand, he would catch it and then let you have the microphone. We will take 3 questions and then he would answer them.
My name is Shakiruddin Akemi, by the way. A poet and CEO of Development. My question is this. The question, who are you? Hello? Is littered all over the place, and it seems to me that as young people, it's not been answered properly. And we've had a serious challenge answering that particular question. And in my opinion, I think that it's a very key question that every young person has to answer in determining where we move from where we are. So I would like to know, At which point in your life did you answer that question clearly? Who are you?
Hi, my name is Maoli. Dr. Sam, I would like to know what's your biggest mistake in life and how did you bounce back?
Thank you very much, Maoli, for the question.
Then from here?
Biggest mistake and how you bounce back.
Last column.
All right, Dr. Sam, God bless you so much for a powerful presentation. My name is JB Shambak. I have two questions. My first one
JB
is...
will take one. Thank you.
All right. In a place like we find ourselves in the world now where there's so much corruption and lack of integrity, when a Christian puts up an affront to these things by being a person of integrity, we found that there are instances where some people have failed in these endeavors. I mean, for instance, the person
Maybe let's get to the question.
Okay, the question is that when you find, have you ever found yourself in an instance where you wanted to stand for that which you believed, and then your people who you're working with stood against you, and in such places where you didn't have that advantage that you wanted to have, what did you do?
When did you answer the question who you are? What has been your biggest mistake, and how did you bounce back? And when you take a stance for what you believe and you meet rejection or obstacles, what?
The third one is
From Sam, from JB, when you take a stance for something that you believe in and you meet opposition or strong rejection to it, how do you deal with that?
Okay. These are very tough questions.
Longest is.
Yeah. At what point did you answer that question about who are you? To be honest with you, it is a process. That's my answer. Because this thing keeps unfolding. I'm a different person today from what I used to be when I joined the World Bank. And what lies ahead of me now is a completely different phase of life. So my simple answer is it is a phase-by-phase, step-by-step process. When God called Moses, this man was supposed to lead the people of Israel to where? To the promised land. Correct? Lead. So he needed leadership qualities. He would never have picked that up growing up in the Hebrew home. So God orchestrated things for him to find himself in the palace of Pharaoh, adopted to study what leadership about. In fact, the book of Acts says he was learned in all the ways of the Egyptians. He picked up that skill. Now, when he finished that job, this is a potential Pharaoh. He finds himself in the desert as a shepherd. Why? Because he's coming back to lead a bunch of shepherds. The Bible says that the shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. So this man has been groomed for 40 years, despising and looking down upon shepherds. If you read the story of Joseph, he would not even sit to eat with the Egyptians as prime minister of Egypt. Did you realize that? When his family had come, his brothers, they set a table separately. So this man, Moses, has grown up with very little respect for shepherds. And God wants him to go and lead shepherds. And he finds himself in the house of Jethro, marries the daughter, and for 40 years, from palatial glory to looks like a failure. But this is the beauty of God's hand in our lives. He was grooming him to prepare to lead the flock. Now, I sit here today ministering to churches, ministering to Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship, ministering to Ghana Fellowship of Evangelical Students. This year, I've been invited again to the Scripture Union Annual Healing and Deliverance Workshop. Writing speeches. I was asked to go and deliver the, the commencement speech for the graduation ceremony. Kofi Annan was there, everybody. Where did this come from? The World Bank trained me. I've met prime ministers, I've met heads of states, I've had ministers of state. So I'm not intimidated by them. I have been in that position where I am not intimidated by the elite, and these are future elites amongst you. And I'm here to tell you that you can be an elite with God as your foundation. So that question you asked is a very loaded question. And I'm saying that it's an unfolding process. God does not open things up at once. If God were to show you everything at once, a lot of you will give up. Because anything that is of God that comes to you must beat your mind. If you have a dream that looks like an achievable dream, it's not from God. A real dream from God will intimidate you. Moses said, you don't know the Pharaoh you are talking about. You are asking me to go and take shepherds who have no arms to go and fight the most powerful army in the world to take your people. The guy was giving excuses. He said he can't speak. And yet he was very eloquent. The training process is what makes it difficult to answer this question right on the spot. Because today you are in a phase. Right now, as I sit here, when I stand to speak, I speak with experience. I speak with boldness. Because in Sierra Leone, I had to stand before embassies, my annual dinner for the African Development Bank. Occasionally, the president will call me. And I sit in a car with the flag of the ADB, Chef de Mission Diplomatique, to the president's place to sit down tete-a-tete. It's a training that he's taking me through to prepare me for this work. That's why I'm here with you. So the real question is, it is an unfolding process. Because he said, even before you were born in your mother's womb, you were conceived in your mother's womb, he knew you. Go and read Psalm 139, and you realize that the answer to this question is a process.
And to Maulis, what has been the biggest mistake that you have
biggest mistake
committed?
Oh, I would say mistake, so not one. One is anger. I could not, I'm like Moses. He didn't make it, Forgot that he was holding God's property, broke it. It's been a struggle, but I've learned over the time. We pick up these things from home, and it's not very easy if you are not aware. And that's one of the things I said in my book on folly. If you're a fool and you don't know that you're a fool, then you are a real fool. And admitting mistakes is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Another area where I made some mistakes was in television, You go and do the mission, you are tired, you come back to your hotel room, you watch TV. That also almost became a problem. I had to deal with it. So anger management. And I have some CDs here on forgiveness. I had a real tough time, forgiving my enemies. Christians, I have no problem, forgiving a Christian and occasionally the enemy. But Jesus said we should love our enemies. He said we should bless those who curse us. That one, I dodged that scripture for years. I prayed to God that he will blow my enemies into pieces. No, I'm serious. If you go to all-night meetings, you see people clapping their hands. But listen, Paul was an enemy of the cross. And he became the apostle to the Gentile world. When you see ISIS and the Taliban and Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, decapitating people and bringing them to the shores, don't get angry. I've heard pastors preaching, let's pray, God deal with them. No. If these guys are prepared to die for Muhammad, if they find Christ, you'll be amazed what God will use them to do. Saul of Tarsus, who became Paul, wrote almost half the New Testament. So let's pray for our enemies. I have a CD here on forgiveness. I ministered at Grace Baptist Church in Kumasi for 1 week crusade. When I finished, the pastor said, this is the last time we will allow any man of God to stand here and ask us to pray against our enemies. Go and bless your enemies. You know why they hate you? They are envious of you. Ask God to bless them too. So that when they become blessed, others will be envious of them. They will have a taste of what they are doing to you. And as you ask God to bless them, He will bless you even more.
All right.
So this is what we need moving forward. I want to add this dimension. It's a very powerful point. We are making politics look like we are enemies. NDC, PPP, MPP. Christians, we have failed. We need Christians in every party. In fact, if we are serious about kingdom business, we should promote members to join the political parties and shine there. Because they are the only hope for the light in those parties. We behave as if we want only one party to exist. It is wrong philosophy. Let's embrace the parties. Let's promote Christianity in all the parties. And let righteousness exalt this nation. And stop playing politics of ethnicity. Did you determine your ethnic group before you were born?
All right. We'll take JB's. What do you do when you meet opposition for something that you firmly stand for and believe? What do you do? Do you bend? Do you cower? Do you?
I shared one with you about the egg problem. You remember? At the World Bank, they promote various groups. So you have several recreational groups there. I came to the African Development Bank on external service and decided to bring a Bible study group to the African Development Bank. Within 6 weeks, we had about 36 people. And we're doing our Bible studies lunchtime in the conference rooms. I had a Secretary General in charge of the conference rooms who was a Muslim. He said, no way. He wouldn't permit us to use the conference rooms. So I went to the Vice President of Corporate Affairs to obtain permission to do the Bible study. I believed that I wasn't doing anything contrary to bank policy. It is lunch hour. We are not using bank time. There are other groups in the bank, but this guy was insisting that this is not a Christian organization. I said, no. The World Bank is bigger than you, and they have Bible studies groups. They have choir groups. We have transcendental meditation, Islam, art group. All of them are there. It's actually good for the bank staff to have recreational groups. He went to see the vice president. The vice president changed his mind. He said, Sam, the Secretary General doesn't want you. So I went to the president. I was very emphatic of what I want to do because I knew I wasn't going against any rule. The guy is a Muslim. He just simply didn't like what was going on and how this thing was moving on so fast. I met the president after a board meeting. I said, Mr. President, he turned around. What can I do for you? I said, I sent you a note about the Bible study that I want to maintain in the bank premise. Oh, yeah. Well, I've been informed that there have been some problems in the past, and so that is why they want you to stop. I stopped after I reached that level. Because beyond that, I'll be going against authority. And I went out into the city and found a school nearby to have the Bible study. And actually, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Now, I had not just African Development Bank staff, I had outside professionals. It grew from 36 to 60, and we had to break it up into two, Francophone Bible study and Anglophone Bible study. And if you read my books, a lot, especially the one on the prophetic utterances, there were emails that I sent to the Bible study group. So to tell you that you don't give up that easily. Stick with it. Be respectful, but stand for what is right. Don't give up. Don't be intimidated. And this society has reached the point where they intimidate people who do right. Can you imagine I'm driving on the street? Every car on this left is in a massive traffic jam. And very few cars are on this side where I'm driving. A taxi driver who doesn't want to remain in that queue goes out of that lane and is facing me. He comes to where I am and he's asking me to go to the right. I stay where I am. And guess what goes on? The people at my back are honking at me. Move, move. And I said, I'm not moving. He has to move. They call the police. The police comes to the site. Say, Ora, I'm not moving. Aren't you supposed to keep the law? Are you not the ones, the custodians of the law, to ensure the taxi driver is in the wrong lane facing me and you are asking me to move? I am not moving. He saw how serious I was. He said, yes, sir. He asked the taxi driver to move. And meanwhile, the people in the back were horning at me, shouting insults. That didn't move me one bit. I did what is right. Let's stand for what is right. Don't let them intimidate you in the office.
So point is made. Respectfully disagree and stand for what you truly believe in. I'll bring to your attention a few of the publications by Dr. Samuel Onwona that are available outside. Prophecies, what to expect from 2011 to 2015. I think this was published before these years. 2, are you a wise fool? 3, the divine path to financial excellence. 4, shadows come to light. Prayer as spiritual warfare. 5, divine guidance for presidential encounters. Oh, I didn't hear the Krife people receive it.
I thought they were all Krife.
No, it's a collection of people from diverse walks. 6, understanding generational curses. 7, overcoming generational curses. 8, praise, prayer, and worship. 9, gems of truth from the throne room. These are published by Dr. Samuel Onwona. We'll take another round of questions from you, our special guest. And as always, let's try to keep it brief and to the point, and so that we can also respond directly to the point and make room for more of you to ask questions.
Titi.
Your name, sir?
Joshua.
Yeah, right. Joshua, your question?
Okay. I've read a couple of things which say things like more developed nations like Europe, America have mindsets that would have them be against African countries developing to a certain level of independence. In your experience in World Bank, I just want to know if we have reason to fear this. I know, of course, if we really have the mindset to be as big as we want to be, we can't be stopped. But do we have reason to believe, especially as people who want to become leaders in, say, politics, for instance, we have reason to believe that more powerful countries will have a problem
All right.
with us becoming independent of them? And are they trying to stop us from getting to that level of bigness?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your name again? Joshua. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Jacob. Doc, please, I would like to find out from you. Assuming I wake up one day and I hear bad news about my mentor, what should I do? Then
Okay,
secondly,
thank you. Thank you. We'll take one. Thank you.
What would you say, or how would you categorize success?
Thank you.
What
What
determines
is
a
success?
a successful man? Sorry.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for the three persons who.
Doc, do you mind if I ask the very final question?
Sure. Sure.
Well, my question is this. Over the years, I've been to programs like this. And back at the university, you met a lot of idealistic young people speak about their passion to rid out corruption and other ills in society. I've seen people transition to become politicians who were friends and mates. And as George Orwell noticed and said in Animal Farm, you couldn't tell the difference between the man and the pig. And I'm looking at all these also idealistic young people listening to you, and you've said so much. It's been quite impressive. And a lot of them represent groups that are into leadership and are into training people. When you see all this, and I'm sure this is not the first time you are talking to groups of people, are you optimistic in any way that there would be any change whatsoever in these same people who you described as potential elite? 20 years from now, if Africa is still what it is, would you be disappointed?
All right. Thank you very much, Sam, for fielding that important question. So we're running behind schedule, so we would take very brief responses from Doc, and then we would call it a
Remind
wrap.
me, Joshua was
So
asking
he
about
asked about
developed countries.
Yes, are there powerful forces that we should fear? Are there
Let me-
against our development, that our impoverishment is to the advantage?
Don't kid yourself. It is survival of the fittest. Have you recently noticed in the news that they were spying on each other? And Germany was angry. This is the top guys spying on each other. And if you read the Bible carefully, after they had lost all their firstborns, Israel was on their way out. They said, have we left these guys to go like that? Let's go back. We are back in a different form of slavery. So I'm very happy to see people like you beginning to challenge the norm. But I want you to keep in mind that it's not going to come on a silver platter. Those who have taken the lead and are the so-called controllers of capital are not going to let go easily. So you have to compete on all fronts.
Let me add Sam's question. Are you optimistic about the current generation?
I am very, very optimistic. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here. I'm optimistic for two reasons. One, I mentioned don't play with God. If God can take Joseph with chains on his feet and his hands and turn him into a prime minister in Egypt, reads like a fable, and we see how Obama, a black man, entered the White House, and we see how Nelson Mandela, incarcerated for 27 years under apartheid, became president. There is nothing too hard for the Lord.
Okay, so
He told Jeremiah, I am the God of all flesh. Is anything too hard for me? So with God, it is possible. Number two, when I spoke last year at the Scripture Union School of Healing and Deliverance Workshop, there was a clear prophecy from the Lord that the next 40 years He's raising a new generation of dedicated, committed men and women of integrity. And he said, this is why I brought you home. So this is a very prophetic meeting. And so I want to assure you, listen carefully, I want to assure you that God's hand is behind this initiative. So move on, be bold, be strong, and forge ahead.
And what do you do when you wake up to bad news about a mentor, someone you believed in, a model?
Very simple. As I told you earlier on, you've got to check what that person has modeled their life after. My daughter is here. She will tell you when we were in Washington, D.C., we never missed Bill Cosby's show. He was the fatherhood mentor for America. But after 40 years, the truth has come out, and we have seen who he is. It means that he was not the right person all the time. Don't you have athletes who got the gold on Olympics and they found out the drugs? You drop them like hot cake. It's as simple as that. You don't hook your life to anyone. If you want to hook your life to anyone, hook your life to Christ. You will never be disappointed. But God uses people like you and me as mentors. So that's why I said the true role model and the true mentor is that person who has the fear of God underpinning that role that he's playing. Otherwise, any role model can disappoint you one day. They may look good today, and tomorrow you may hear some bad stories.
Doc, what would be your definition of success? Who is a successful person?
A successful person, and you can see I'm very biased in my responses because I believe in my Christian faith. A successful person is the person who lands where God has appointed him or her to be. Period. Listen to me. You can be a tailor. And that's one of the places where we are doing very badly in terms of career development. When I was in school and we did mathematics, we wrote 6th form engines. When you did biology, they wrote 6th form medicine. So it's either engineering or medicine. I did agriculture. We were called disappointed medical students. No, I'm not joking. It is not the profession, it's where God has appointed you to be. I have a friend with Joyful Way Singers who is a carpenter. KK Ofori. His company's name is forgotten. But KK Ofori is a professional carpenter. And on his desk, he has a very nice signboard, the master's profession. I like that. The profession of the Lord Jesus Christ. Can you see? Look at Zoom Lion. What is he doing? Baller man. Raking millions of dollars or CDs. So what I'm talking about is success is measured by being where God has appointed you to be. It's when you have attained your destiny. Now here again is the catch. If you are going to Odan and I'm going to Tamale, there is no basis for competition. Whether you reach Odan first or Tamale first, there's no connection. So if you understand this principle of destiny, you won't compete with anybody. You will stick with what God has called you to be and be what God wants you to be. When you are what God wants you to be, you have succeeded in life. Whether you're a teacher or an artist, a musician, a doctor, an engineer, if that's what God has called you to be, that is success to me. Because once he calls you and you land in that place, the grace for performance is there. The anointing for achievement is there. I read the Bible and I don't understand why God will not bless Abraham in the land of the Chaldees. He said, get up. Go to the land I will show you. He gets there and he begins to talk to him about all these promises. Why move? You have to move out of your comfort zone. So when God calls you, that is the key. And that's why I bring God into the picture. stick with God, get to know who He has called you to be. And that's it. Obama had something in him. I want to learn. The Lord showed me very clearly. He said, this is the Joseph I'm raising up. Get the copy of my book on divine guidance for presidential encounters. When God showed me about the black man coming to the White House. Very few people believed. I have an American friend, an African American. He said he's not going anywhere. I said, well, God told me he's a Joseph. There was something in him that refused to accept opposition. That man went against, I mean, the establishment was against him. These people have dinners and people come and pay $100,000 for one plate. If Obama were to go that route, he wouldn't have made $1 million. Nobody. Where are the blacks to put that kind of money? He went for $5, $20, and he raised the largest amount of money for election campaign in the history of America by going for the peanuts. There was something in him that refused to give in because the hand of God was behind it. When the hand of God is behind you, there is nothing that can stop you. That's my encouragement to you.
Doc, we have traversed this evening matters of faith, finances, the field of work. I think it would be injustice to the many young people here if we don't drop a note about the influence of family. How important has your spouse and who you chose been to the journey that you have, how far you have come, as an advice to young people, the young people listening to you, in terms of making a decision on a life partner? How important is that decision?
You're talking about two issues. One is life partner, you're talking also about family. But I think the family, because if we have to do life partner discussion, we're talking about counseling issues, we can do that at a later date or in a different forum. But family is critical. On my first mission to Bangladesh, we were having a meeting with the Minister of Finance the following morning at 7 a.m. We worked till about 11 p.m. and those days the computers didn't have autosave. We lost everything. The lights went off in the hotel, and the generator, before the generator will come on, we lost everything. We had to stay in and work till 3 a.m. to redo the analysis. There was an Indian fellow who was retiring that year. He saw me how, motivated, young professional, working. I was the one cranking the numbers. He said, Sam, I've been in the World Bank for 30 years. I'm retiring this year. Put your family number one. Whatever you do, if you have to discount your, what do they call it, when you have a personal objective to achieve, there's a fine line. It gets to a point where the family must never be put aside. There are people who ignore family because they think what family needs is money, and they work their hearts out to climb the corporate ladder, and before they know it, the children are off. Never play with family. That's your background, that's your foundation, that's your strength, and that's what will keep you. At the end of the day, that's where you retire to. And being one with your wife, my daughter will tell you, we have a family altar. It's not a shrine with a cross. It's just a place where we meet every evening to pray and discuss the Word of God. A family altar where you impart to the children some of the experiences that you have gained, and to bring the truth and this whole concept of integrity, build it at home. put it into the children. That's why you are working. If you climb the corporate ladder and end up with children who are deviants, you have failed miserably. So one of the issues of success of family, an individual is being where God has placed you and raising up the family for the next generation. That is a successful man.
That's why
or
Abraham
woman.
was also chosen, because he will order his household
Exactly.
after him. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together. This has been Role Model Africa, our corporate dialogue and coaching discourse series. We have looked at Dr. Sam Onwona's journey from his personal, corporate, and international influence. I'll leave you with this about role models. Average leaders raise the bar on themselves. Good leaders raise the bar for others. Great leaders inspire others to raise their own bar. This evening, he has challenged us and thrown the option to us. Where would you place the bar? Have a good night.